In the shadows of history lies a name that has become synonymous with ultimate power: Rothschild. A dynasty built on 5 arrows, launched from a Frankfurt ghetto to conquer the financial capitals of the world. For 2 centuries, they have been accused of being the hidden hand behind every major conflict. Tonight, we peel back the layers of myth to reveal the cold, hard gold beneath the legend. It began with Mayer Amschel Rothschild, a coin dealer who saw opportunity in the chaos of royal debts. He strategically placed his 5 sons across Europe, creating the world's first international banking network. Their first great test came with the rise of Napoleon, a war that would reshape the world and the Rothschild fortune. While empires clashed, the Rothschilds orchestrated a massive secret gold smuggling operation to fund the British Army. Then came Waterloo, the battle that birthed 1,000 conspiracy theories and a legendary stock market coup. Using their private network of couriers, Nathan Rothschild knew of Napoleon's defeat before the king himself. The legend says he used this secret knowledge to crash the London market and buy it for pennies. In reality, Nathan waited and bought government bonds, turning a potential loss into the greatest fortune ever seen. By the 1820s, the Rothschilds were not just bankers. They were the creditors of kings and emperors. In 1825, they saved the Bank of England itself from collapse with a massive emergency shipment of gold. They expanded west, sending August Belmont to New York to manage their interests in the young American Republic. When the American Civil War broke out, rumors swirled that the Rothschilds were funding both sides to maximize profit. Records show a different story. Their agent Belmont was a fierce supporter of Lincoln and the Union cause. In 1875, Lionel de Rothschild provided a £4 million loan on 24 hours' notice to buy the Suez Canal. This single transaction secured Britain's empire and proved that the family's checkbook could steer global policy. They branched into industry, founding Rio Tinto and De Beers, controlling the raw materials of the industrial age. But as the 20th century dawned, a new era of global conflict and industrial giants challenged their dominance. Conspiracy theorists point to 1913, claiming the Rothschilds secretly engineered the creation of the Federal Reserve. Yet historical fact shows the Fed is a government-overseen agency, not a private Rothschild playground. World War I shattered the integrated European economy the Rothschilds had spent a century building. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration was addressed to Lord Walter Rothschild, signaling support for a Jewish homeland. By the 1930s, the family was no longer the puppet master. They were the targets of a rising, hateful regime. The Nazis seized the Vienna branch, imprisoning Baron Louis von Rothschild and looting their legendary art collections. Forced into exile, the family's status as the world's primary financiers effectively ended during the Second World War. The rise of American superpowers and massive joint stock banks relegated the dynasty to the pages of history. Today, they operate as a modern financial firm, far removed from the shadow central bank of the 19th century. So why do the conspiracy theories persist? It began with an 1846 pamphlet written by a man calling himself Satan. This early propaganda invented the story of Nathan's Waterloo trick, turning a banking win into a malevolent myth. In the 20th century, these myths were used to fuel the forged protocols of the Elders of Zion, spreading global dread. The claim that they fund both sides of every war is a persistent trope designed to dehumanize and distort. Today, the myth has mutated once more, including claims of controlling the weather and a new world order. Yet, the family's actual wealth is now dwarfed by the tech giants and sovereign funds of the 21st century. Away from the ledgers, the family were scientists and explorers. One even drove a zebra-drawn carriage through London. Their legacy remains etched in the geopolitics of the Middle East and the financial architecture of Europe. Are they the hidden hand behind every war? Or are they simply a family that understood power better than any other? The truth is far more complex than the myth. Join us next time as we unveil more secrets of history. Like and subscribe for more. As the 19th century advanced, the Rothschilds looked beyond government debt to the engines of industry. Salomon Rothschild in Vienna realized that the future of Europe would be laid in iron and steam. He financed the Kaiser Ferdinand's Nordbahn, the first great steam railway of the Austrian Empire. In Paris, his brother James was doing the same, founding the Compagnie du Chemin de Fer du Nord. Raising 200 million francs for such a feat was a power only the Rothschild network could wield. They moved into the earth itself, securing a dominant stake in the Rio Tinto mining company in Spain. By 1887, they were the primary financiers behind Cecil Rhodes and the founding of De Beers. Even the burgeoning oil fields of Baku were powered by Rothschild capital through the Imital Holding Company. But their dominance was not unchallenged. They faced a bitter financial war with their former protégés, the Pereires. The Pereiras pioneered joint stock banking, raising capital from the public to rival the Rothschilds' private might. The rivalry became personal, with both families building competing, sprawling chateaux across the French countryside. By 1867, the Pereiras overextended and collapsed, leaving the Rothschild model as the undisputed victor. Their survival was tied to their unity, governed by strict partnership agreements and frequent intermarriage. They became the bankers to kings, but they also became the targets of political upheaval and nationalization. In 1981, the French branch faced its greatest modern threat when President Mitterrand moved to nationalize the bank. The government seized their base since 1812, stripping the family of their name and their heritage. Guy de Rothschild wrote bitterly, "A Jew under Pétain, a pariah under Mitterrand," and fled to New York. But his son David stayed, starting again with just 3 employees and a determination to reclaim the family name. In 2003, the British and French houses finally merged, unifying the family capital under a single global umbrella. This merger was designed to compete with the global titans while keeping the business firmly under family control. But to understand the Rothschilds, one must look beyond the ledgers and the banks. In the late 19th century, they transformed the concept of charity into organized social welfare. Nathaniel, the first Lord Rothschild, recognized that the industrial classes lived in squalor. He founded the 4% Industrial Dwellings Company to build high-standard social housing. These massive blocks in London's East End provided sanitation and light far superior to the era's slums. In Paris, Edmond, Alphonse, and Gustave founded a similar housing company in 1904. They constructed over 1,000 affordable units featuring revolutionary indoor plumbing and ventilation. They also built hospitals. Ferdinand founded the Evelina Children's Hospital in memory of his wife. In Paris, the Adolphe de Rothschild Foundation Hospital became a world leader in neurology. Their influence also drove civil rights. Lionel de Rothschild fought an 11-year battle to enter Parliament. Elected in 1847, he was barred from taking his seat because the oath required swearing upon the true faith of a Christian. Lionel refused. He resigned and was re-elected 5 times by the City of London to force the issue. Finally, the Jews Relief Act of 1858 allowed each house to decide its own oath. On July 26, 1858, Lionel swore on the Old Testament, wearing his hat, becoming the first Jewish MP. While London flourished, the original Frankfurt house began to slowly decline at the end of the century. Following the unification of Germany, financial power shifted from Frankfurt to the Prussian capital of Berlin. In 1901, the last resident partner of the Frankfurt house, Wilhelm Karl, passed away without male heirs. No member of the London or Paris branches would relocate, and the original house of Mayer Amschel was closed. Back in England, Lionel Walter, the second Lord Rothschild, had little interest in the family bank. His true passion was zoology. On his 21st birthday, his father built him a massive private museum at Tring. Walter employed 400 collectors worldwide, amassing millions of butterflies and hundreds of giant tortoises. He famously drove a carriage pulled by 4 tame zebras to Buckingham Palace to prove they could be domesticated. In 1937, his extraordinary collection was gifted to the nation, where it remains a scientific treasure today. Another unexpected path was taken by Victor Rothschild, a Cambridge biologist who entered the shadow world of espionage. Recruited by MI5 in 1939, he led Section B1C, the Explosives and Sabotage Department, during World War II. Victor personally dismantled German booby traps, including time bombs hidden in a shipment of Spanish onions. For his extreme bravery and hazardous work, he was awarded the George Medal in 1944. His association with the Cambridge Apostles later led to unfounded rumors tying him to the Cambridge spy ring. He spent his later years as a highly influential think tank advisor to the British government. Through wars, intelligence, and science, the family eventually returned to its core: unified wealth management. In 2023, the family took Rothschild & Co. private, shielding it from the public markets to ensure long-term control. Under the leadership of Alexandra de Rothschild, the 7th generation now guides the dynasty. Today, they focus on global advisory, wealth management, and merchant banking. They no longer fund armies with smuggled gold, but they still advise nations on massive debt restructurings. The true power of the Rothschilds was never supernatural control. It was a ruthless, coordinated mastery of information. They saw the modern world coming, and they built the financial infrastructure to own it. Their expansion into America was defined by the Panic of 1837, a massive financial depression. A young clerk named August Belmont arrived in New York just as the family's agents went bankrupt. Without waiting for orders, Belmont used Rothschild funds to buy up depressed securities on the cheap. He salvaged their American interests, becoming a fixture of New York high society. He became a political kingmaker, leaving a legacy that even includes the famous Belmont Stakes. Yet his relationship with the family in Europe was notoriously tense, with Baron James calling him a scoundrel. Back in Europe, a different kind of rivalry was brewing in the vineyards of Bordeaux. In 1853, Nathaniel de Rothschild purchased an estate and named it Chateau Mouton Rothschild. 15 years later, his uncle Baron James bought the neighboring Chateau Lafite for a record sum. The friction started with the 1855 classification, where Lafite was ranked first and Mouton only second. Nathaniel was offended, adopting the motto, "First I cannot be, second I do not deign to be, Mouton I am." The rivalry raged until Baron Philippe de Rothschild took over Mouton, determined to elevate its status. He introduced estate bottling and commissioned artists like Picasso and Chagall to design the labels. In 1973, Mouton was finally elevated to first growth, the only change ever made to the 1855 classification. Beyond wine, their immense wealth birthed an entire aesthetic known as the Rothschild taste. Curated by Baron James and his wife, Betty, it featured a sumptuous mix of Renaissance art and heavy gilding. They revived the concept of the Kunstkammer, filling their homes with rare and priceless curiosities. But this legendary collection made them primary targets for the Nazis' systematic art looting. The ERR division confiscated thousands of works from the family's vaults in France and Austria. Following the war, the Allied Monuments Men units were tasked with tracking down the stolen masterpieces. Many Rothschild treasures were discovered hidden deep within castles and salt mines across Europe. While some pieces were returned quickly, the family fought decades-long legal battles to reclaim others. Historically overshadowed by the five brothers, the women of the family were essential to its survival. Gutle Schnapper, the wife of founder Mayer Amschel, remained in the Frankfurt ghetto until she died at 95. She famously refused to move to a palace, believing her presence in the old home protected her children's fortunes. In London, Hannah Rothschild was an active and fierce advisor to her husband, Nathan. She pushed aggressively for Jewish civil rights, even threatening to lobby the Lord Chancellor herself. The Rothschild women used an extensive network of letters to manage the family's social influence. This soft power bridged the gap between the family's bank and the halls of European power. They acted as confidants to figures like Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli and Queen Victoria. From the slums of Frankfurt to the height of global power, the dynasty was built on relentless ambition.